Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. You may remember a few years back, well, actually over a half a decade back now because time is flying, we got our very first taste of a Call of Duty Battle Royale. And while, no, it's not the Battle Royale that we're playing here today all these years later, it was the first of its kind, and today I wanted to revisit it and talk about the idea of it ever potentially being revived, getting a sequel of some kind. Could Blackout 2 ever actually happen? So back in 2018, Black Ops 4 was obviously the premium Call of Duty title, and while it had its own dedicated multiplayer mode, had its own dedicated zombies mode, it also introduced something for the very first time known as Blackout, which was Call of Duty's first iteration of a true battle royale, essentially meant to compete with Fortnite. This was during the time where Fortnite was absolutely taking off and just dominating the gaming industry, and of course Call of Duty being a premium title in the gaming genre just in general, right, said, hey, we got to do something like this. Players will obviously love a COD twist on Battle Royale. And Blackout, for what it was honestly a ton of fun, and it was decently successful as well. It was, however, a pay-to-play experience. You had to go through and buy Black Ops 4 if you wanted to go through and play Blackout. And that to this day is still probably one of, if not the biggest limiter that Blackout actually had on it. And that might be the reason that we're in the current situation we are in today, where Warzone is the standard Call of Duty Battle Royale. And it has been for the past several years and will be for the next several years as well. Blackout being locked behind a paywall did ultimately limit it a ton when you had its largest competitor in Fortnite being a free-to-play, fully accessible title. But Blackout, for being the very first iteration of a Call of Duty Battle Royale going mainstream, it was honestly pretty impressive. Like, Blackout got a ton of updates throughout the year. It saw significant map changes to its overall Battle Royale map, where every single new quote-unquote season, it was known as Operations back in Black Ops 4, but every new season, the map was actually drastically changing. We would see new points of interest added in, where they added in like, a western town, or they flooded the entire map. They changed the lighting and the scenery, so we went from having like, a standard spring afternoon to having like a sunset, to having, a blossoming springtime version of the map. Blackout got a lot of very impressive updates, and the update quality and consistency throughout the year was actually really fun to see, and pretty impressive now, even more so, especially looking back. On top of that, getting new map updates and changes every single operation. There were a ton of hidden Easter eggs within Blackout. Obviously, Treyarch loves their Easter eggs. They love their little hidden objectives, so they went through and they had a ton of Easter eggs on the map with different things you could do, where you could get music to play if you were up by the asylum, or other cool things going on in the world as well. The game had its own like official leveling system. It eventually got its own camo grind, where you had to go through and collect paint cans across the map to ultimately go for dark matter. I won't lie, kind of a tedious one there, but it was cool to see nonetheless. Blackout as a first time thing, especially like I said, looking back now, was very impressive. So what happened? Well, the biggest thing is Warzone dropped. Modern Warfare 2019 releases. That game blows up right away at launch and is one of the record-setting Call of Duties at the time. And then just a few short months later, the world shuts down, and simultaneously Warzone releases. And most of all, the biggest thing here is that this time it's a free-to-play Battle Royale, and it's got the Battle Royale world set in Verdansk, connecting directly to the Modern Warfare story. There's a plunder mode that's a bit more casual, and the rest is history, of course. Warzone absolutely takes off. It becomes the new #1 game in the industry. Everyone is playing Warzone, to the casuals, to the sweatier players going for tournaments and playing in those, celebrities and athletes. Everyone was on Warzone in a very similar way to everyone being on Fortnite when that game first blew up. So obviously they saw this happen, and then that completely changed plans for the future. Blackout and Warzone, actually, believe it or not, seemingly were going to be like an every other year sort of flip-flop thing. Now, I imagine if that had come to fruition, Blackout was going to turn to a free-to-play Battle Royale as well to, you know, keep it on par with Warzone's accessibility, but there were a bunch of leaks that ended up surfacing throughout the year of Modern Warfare 2019 in Warzone relating to Cold War, and then even more leaks throughout the year of Cold War where we discovered these large maps. And of course, Cold War ended up having its own special fire team mode, which was like large map based. Outbreak also took place on several of these, and the location where all of these larger maps were was known as the greater region of the Ural Mountains. And this Ural Mountains map was supposedly going to be the Blackout 2 map. So had Warzone not gone absolutely nuclear and instead just done decently well, we would have gone from Blackout in Black Ops 4 being the first Battle Royale to Warzone sort of being the Modern Warfare Battle Royale, and then presumably back to Blackout for what could have been Blackout 2, probably as a free-to-play Treyarch-based Battle Royale within Cold War. Of course, though, that did not happen. But everything was set up to be very similar to how Warzone was approached. Verdansk obviously comprised of several different ground war maps that we had within Modern Warfare 2019. The Ural Mountains was comprised of several different fire team maps where we had locations like the Sanatorium, the Ruka map, Golova, Duga, Alpine is like a ski resort. It was honestly a pretty diverse map, and one that for a long time we kept talking about, okay, this is going to be the next Warzone map. This is going to be the new locations on the next Warzone map. We all thought, hey, this was going to be the next Warzone update for Cold War, and of course that turned to Verdansk 84 to be a bit more on brand and on theme with everything going on in Warzone, and somewhat Black Ops Cold War as well, since they did not want to abandon Warzone when it was still riding the largest peak in Call of Duty history. And from Activision's standpoint, that makes complete sense. So I would have to imagine that basically the moment that Black Ops 4 ended its final production, which was probably in one of the later operations towards the end of its life cycle, just before Modern Warfare 2019 was getting ready to release, they started production on what would have been Blackout 2. And they started designing this map for it. They were incorporating various different elements of their next premium title, that being Cold War, into it so they'd have the universe fit with the story and everything. And it was going to be very similar to how Blackout tied to Black Ops 4 and how Warzone tied to Modern Warfare. But Warzone's success single-handedly halted that entirely and likely caused the entire shift of Warzone and Blackout being alternating sort of Warzone and Battle Royale experiences, really to be just being Warzone and Warzone exclusively. And fun fact, I heard this rumor a long time ago. Blackout's codename initially, I think when it first got greenlit, was actually Warzone behind the scenes. So kind of funny if that's actually true and that's how it played out. But now looking forward, Blackout 2. This has been a conversation for some time because of these reasons that I brought up. Blackout had so much potential. The gameplay was obviously a lot more raw. It was very pure RNG, Battle Royale based, whereas Warzone is much more predictable. You have your own custom loadouts. It's much more straightforward and geared towards action. Blackout was you loot around, you get good gear, you find attachments, you find weapons, very much so random every single match. But a lot of people enjoyed that. A lot of people enjoyed the map and the experience of what Blackout was, how it was designed from Treyarch with, you know, different things from how Infinity Ward or Raven may approach things for Warzone. So it's been a conversation for some time. Unfortunately, now though, we are so far into Warzone that even in, you know, years like Warzone 2, where it starts off super high and then plummets because the game just is not that great, or Vanguard and Caldera, where the interest definitely fell off quite a bit just because of the time period in the era, Warzone is still Call of Duty's biggest mainstream thing, right outside of like mobile, which just dominates everything. Warzone is what's bringing the largest audience and the largest player base to Call of Duty the vast majority of the year. And thus, if they were to then bring out Blackout 2 and actually launch that, they'd either be directly competing with themselves, which is still good in the sense of like, hey, look, everyone's either on Battle Royale 1 for us or Battle Royale 2 for us, which is good for Activision, but splitting that player base ultimately is not something they want to do. So you'd either have the two games competing with one another, and then once everyone realizes, hey, actually this one's way better, the chunk of players would then switch to that, and then you have a dying game on the other side, right? Or an inactive game on the other side. or they drop Warzone entirely and say, okay, we're switching to Blackout, which would also probably inherently cause a lot of players to say, you know, I'm used to Warzone. I like this. This is the Battle Royale that I've come to know and love. I'm good. See you later, right? So they just won't probably abandon what is currently their largest demographic of players within the franchise. So Warzone is so successful because it was built out of the idea and, you know, enhanced because of Blackout. And the sequel was so much better than the original that now the sequel has turned into the mainstream, the main title. An interesting development, and unfortunately, it likely means Blackout 2 is probably never going to come to fruition. I'm a little bit bummed. I think it would be a ton of fun, but I also understand why it can't be given the circumstances. Now, would you like to see a Blackout 2 though? I'm very curious to get y'all's perspective. Drop me a comment down below with your ideas, your thoughts on the subject. If you enjoyed the video while you're down there, a like rating is seriously appreciated. It does help grow the channel and spread the video to new viewers. And if you are one of those new viewers, or maybe you just have not subscribed yet, this is the place to be to stay up to date with everything going on in COD on a daily basis. So feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.